Welcome. You're just joining us on this great broadcast day, Saturday, our first weekend broadcast, I believe. Really happy to be live here with y'all. I'm going to share some links as I do always, and then we will get going. I tried to go live on Facebook, but it didn't seem on this great broadcast day, Saturday. It didn't seem to be working really well with the whole Facebook thing. I don't know what's going on, which is unfortunate. But we are here. We are live. And if you're a podcast listener, thank you for tuning in. Welcome to the Fight for Liberty podcast. If it's your first time listening, I would like to thank you for listening to the Fight for Liberty podcast. Constitutional podcast. We believe in the God-given rights of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the First and Second Amendment. We're big on those. If you're just joining us on the podcast, today's podcast is going to be a crazy one. Of course, I've been away for a week from doing the show, and now here we are doing the show live for y'all. And I think I'm really enjoying doing this. I'm enjoying having people call in, and my voice is giving out a little bit today. I don't know why. Allergies are getting pretty bad, I guess, today. But I've been enjoying doing the podcast, doing the live streams. I really want to get into a habit of doing them weekly. And I also would like to edit the podcast after it's been streamed and all, so we can kind of get a better video view for the people who are viewing after the live stream. But if you're just joining us, today's topic of the Fight for Liberty podcast is about the radical left. The radical left. Everyone knows about the radical left. I've been seeing so much attacks on both sides of the fence. Obviously, there is some radical right-wing extremists, although we all know the mainstream media would rather focus on right-wing extremists than actually focusing on what needs to be focused on, which are the radical left extremists. I think we're pretty clear on who those people are. I won't name names right now for everybody's safety, but we know who those people are, especially the people on the right. If you're just joining us, thank you. We're gonna do our call-in at the end of the hour. A little late night broadcast for us. This is very late. I had prepared 3 hours in advance, and with these live streams, it's always you don't know what to expect. There's always a technical aspect you're going to run in. But the radical left, we have some news I'm going to get into in a bit. Let me charge this up here. I'll read some articles for you. I don't have the printed articles today, obviously. We were going to go live on Facebook, but it's just too many technical difficulties. We're going to do a multicast stream. We'll probably do that next week on next week's stream. So join us there on Facebook. Might even do a little, if we end this stream early enough, we might do a little, Q&A after on Facebook, talking a little bit about the fight for liberty, so on and so forth. But the radical left is out of their minds now. They are completely gone full-blown crazy. Yes, that's right, folks. The radical left have gone full-blown crazy. If you don't know by now, now you know. And just going back to the leftist ideology, the leftist it's all buried in a Marxist ideology that really, if you really look at it and you go back through history, and you look at more left-leaning ideals, they have always kind of been established in what is contrary to or against opposing what the country was founded on. And that's not to say that all Democrats are radical leftists thinking about, Marxist uprising or a communist uprising. Certainly, that's definitely not the case in America. I don't think that's the case at all. But I do think that there is a uprising that is happening via la revolution, as they would say. We have seen that in multiple countries. When we talk about a civil war, because obviously there's been a lot of talk about civil war, and obviously things are ramping up. Here in my home state, there's been some clashes within a city called Rio Rancho. We'll get a little bit more updates, hopefully, on that. We do know, as of right now, this is September 12th at 9 p.m. 2020, that a Trump supporter, has been arrested after clashing with some BLM supporters. So we'll get into that later. Hopefully, it doesn't erupt in too much chaos as we've seen throughout other cities. I think New Mexico BLM is not as crazy, but of course we always get those agitators that come in and out. And hopefully both sides keep it peaceful. Again, both sides need to keep it peaceful in order to prevent a civil war. I'm going to be talking about that later too, some of the contradictions with the right that I have personally a problem with. A lot of contradictions that I have a problem with. And I'm not a Republican, and I'm not registered under a Republican. I'm actually re-registered under independent. After I've seen what the GOP has done in the past 2 years, it has motivated me to leave the party. I don't want to be associated with Rhino Republicans, especially in the Bush era. But going on, talking about kind of the radical left ideology a little bit, because that is what this title of this podcast episode 3, is about. The radical leftist Marxist ideology has been around for a long time, obviously. Karl Marx being the founder of this leftist uprising. And a lot of people associate fascism with the right, which is not always true. Fascism is actually a leftist concept as well. Now, we can get into the whole nationalist socialist thing, what happened with the uprising of Hitler and so on and so forth. That is debatable too, because a lot of people would say, well, that's a combination of both. Possibly, but it kind of is, because you're talking about a nationalist socialist ideology. Now, it still was based more in socialism, but it had the national identity to it. So we have to think about that. We have to think about globalization and so on and so forth. And talking about the republic and democracy. Now, you look at the Republicans, they'll say it's a constitutional republic, which is right. That is right. However, there are implements of democracy in our government. That is a fact. We took a lot from the Greeks and the liberal arts, so on and so forth, to establish the United States. And the Greeks, as we know in the history, were more of a democracy. Now, we look at more of a republic like the Roman Republic, which ended up becoming a dictator empireship later on. Now, people debate whether or not Julius Caesar, now we're going back, way back, whether or not Julius Caesar was a good leader or not, much like controversial presidents that we've had in the past 150 years and prior to that in our existence. That's always been debated. In fact, Abraham Lincoln was not a popular president amongst many voters as well. They wanted to get rid of him too. But we also look back in history, like I said, with Julius Caesar, he was kind of, they debated whether or not he was good or not. Now, there were people who were insiders who took him out. Obviously, when he was assassinated, there was people who wouldn't like him. We've seen that throughout history with people like Lincoln and JFK. Now, in American history, we celebrate those idols. We think, hey, these are the greatest presidents of all time. But during that time, a lot of people don't know, they weren't popular amongst everybody. Yes, they were populist president, much like our current president, but they weren't popular in certain areas either. JFK was actually considered pretty moderate for a Democrat of his time. He was considered a little bit more conservative than most Democrats. Of course, JFK kind of paved the way for the Democratic ideology that Democrats were the good guys, as we all know. And he was more conservative because, again, when we talk about radical leftism, and he was a moderate Democrat, a moderate conservative Democrat, in my opinion. But again, when we talk about the radical left, we always associate it with a leftist ideology or communist ideology. Now, who was very opposed to the Soviet Union and Cuba during that time? JFK. Now, he was what people would consider a Democrat or a leftist. But how is a leftist against Cuba? How is he? Now, then we look at the Cuban Missile Crisis. We're talking a lot about history because it really does play an important role in what is happening today, because we are seeing exactly what happened with those presidents, Lincoln and JFK, how the socialist communist uprising, which also took place prior to JFK in the 40s and the 50s, with the whole thing with McCarthyism and all that, where they said, well, we're blacklisting celebrities because they're communists. Now that doesn't seem too much far from the truth. Now they say McCarthy was a liar, that he lied about them being associated with the Communist Party. But now it kind of makes you think, after seeing all this communist ideology kind of play out, was McCarthy wrong calling these Hollywood elites communist? He might not have been. He might not have been the liar that history has painted him. Because now we are seeing a radical amount of Hollywood elites claiming this far leftist ideology. In fact, if I could, I don't have it right in front of me, but I would play you a clip. Actually, let's go ahead and play a sound clip for you. Let's see if I can find the sound clip of some celebrities calling for a socialist country. In fact, one of our very favorite celebrities, I think Americans treasure him a lot. However, I think he did do too many drugs, specifically acid. I will play you a little clip of Jim Carrey, which I saw the other day, saying we have to say yes to socialism. Let's see if we can find the clip here. Oh yeah, here it is right here. Let me see if I can play it for you here. Now I'm just doing audio clips today, it looks like, folks. So there's Bernie talking about socialism. So here's Jim Carrey. So Danny DeVito, of course, also going off saying that we have to accept we have to say yes to socialism. I don't think that was too much. I'm going to turn it up a little bit louder for you guys again. Research. See, so Jim Carrey, actor that people just love, is now saying that we have to say yes to the word socialism. We love Jim Carrey. We think he's a great actor. We think he's funny. But what happened to him? I mean, he had this, I would call, new age awakening, where you take a bunch of acid and you have an awakening about who your true self is and your ego dies. Death of the ego, which is more associated with a mystical principle within yourself. Now, we can go on the whole New Age spirituality movement and expose that for you, but we're not going to do that today. That'll be for another episode for the Fight for Truth podcast, which is a sub-vision podcast from the Fight for Liberty. It's also AKA Truth Seekers Media podcast, which will talk a little bit into religion, so on and so forth in that podcast, and conspiracy theories and what have you. But we are having these Hollywood elites now calling for socialism. And it's just insane because Biden, I said a year ago, or almost 2 years ago, actually, in 2018, I said Biden will be the front runner. He's going to be the guy. He's going to be the guy. He's going to be the guy. I predicted that. I can play you the clip right here, but I'll post a link or something. I don't want to make claims without backing them up. So I don't want, like I said, I don't want to make claims without backing them up. So it's quite possible that I will play you that clip real quick and briefly, because I don't want to sit here and not back up what I said. But I did call him out. I said Biden will be the front runner, and Biden ended up being the front runner. And to my surprise, I didn't. And I think I also said that they will rig the election. So let's just hear a little clip of what I have to say. I'll start it from the beginning here. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. I keep doing that.
Biden announced last week that he was going to officially run. I think everybody in the media is wondering.
I don't know why it's not playing. Huh. Anyways,
Biden, the inappropriate touching, so on and so forth.
Here we go.
It's going to affect his candidacy. A lot of people said that they predict Bernie's going to be the front runner. I don't know if that's possible. I don't even know if Bernie's going to be able to do that. I predict that Joe Biden's going to be the front runner, and if he goes against the president, it's going to be a showdown for the ages. We're going to have to start exposing Joe Biden, his pedophilia, his corruption. I expect.
Oh, see, so weird that I just had that video, and all of a sudden Facebook just kicked me off while I was watching it.
Continuation of the Obama administration policies when he does run. He's going to run on that. I could tell you that for sure. I think that they're just like they tried to rig the 2020 election.
I said 2020, I meant 2016.
Meddling and all this other stuff. We'll get to the Miller report in 1 second. Hillary Clinton hacked the voter machines, believe it or not. A lot of them were owned by George Soros himself. George Soros, the big donor, he even donated to New Mexico's governor, my governor, Michelle Lujan.
So there you go. Basically, after I said that, I said they will rig the 2020 election. And in fact, we are seeing that in front of our eyes, folks. We're seeing that with mail-in ballots. I received 3 mail-in ballots in the past month. Applications for the absentee ballot. Ridiculous. And now the Republicans are pushing it too, the GOP, in every state. They are literally rigging it in front of our eyes, just like they did in 2016 with the voter machines and with Soros owning some of the voter machines across the country. They're doing the same thing. Remember those pictures that we saw of the electronic voter machine? There's no other way to vote. Adding on to that, there's no other way to vote that is secure other than voting the way we traditionally vote with our ballots. That's just it. The voter machines. People were trying to press for Trump or Gary Johnson, and it only let them press on the voter machines, wigged out, got stuck on Hillary's name. We've seen that in multiple states. Now we are seeing it again with mail-in ballots. Folks, traditional voting is the only way to go. Voting in person is the only way that we can secure a safe election. I don't care what Facebook tells you, Instagram, or whoever else. See, the mainstream media also covered, CNBC did a report, folks. They did a report where they did a mock election, such as ours, of sending 100 ballots through the mail. What happened is they only received 97 of them. So some of them are lost. But that could be so crucial in a close election, which I hope it's not. I said I'm starting to see Biden-Harris pop up a lot more. And I'm worried that the people that hate Trump so much are going to hate him so much they're going to go out there and vote. But you know what? I'm not too worried because the Democrats are the ones that are going to vote by mail, the majority of them. They're not going to vote in person. So their chances of actually getting their ballot in are probably 65%, 75% chance. I'm just throwing that number out there of getting their ballot in and counted. So we're seeing another repeat of 2016. The polls, of course, are close. We've seen that. Actually, we've seen way worse polls in 2016. So, and looking at the polls, Fox News too, they have Biden ahead. Of course, Fox. We're gonna get in. This episode, I was thinking about changing it because I was saying, well, the radical left, they've gone crazy. And I was like, I'm sick of talking about them. But it needs to be addressed. But I was going to initially change the title of the episode to The Deep State and talking about the mainstream media and the manipulation of the deep state. I needed to collect more information on that. I could tell you a lot right now, but we'd be going off into a different subject. But the radical left has taken this ideology of Joe Biden back to Biden because I said he was going to be the front runner and I predicted it. I said he was going to go off of Obama policy. I was wrong. He's going off a combination of Obama policy. That's what he ran. I feel like I'm talking really fast, but that's what he initially ran as in the primaries. He was an Obama candidate. Let's continue what Obama did. I'm a moderate. Look at me. I'm a moderate. Okay. We've seen that throughout the cycle. Now he's partnering with Bernie and some of Bernie's policies on the healthcare issues. That's insane, folks. I mean, I never thought that Biden would be a puppet for the left. I mean, okay, that's a stupid thing to say. Of course he is. He's a puppet for the radical left. He is not a moderate. Kamala Harris is definitely not a moderate. She's a straight up crazy woman. She's a crazy woman, and her ideology is so radical, it is dangerous to our democracy. No, it's dangerous to the Constitution of America. I'm not going to say it's dangerous to our government or our democracy like some people do, Bernie Sanders. It's dangerous to our constitutional republic to get someone like Kamala Harris in. It's dangerous to communities, people who believe that Black lives do matter, which they do. There's no denying the fact that Black lives matter. And I think us as conservatives, me personally too, I've been guilty of acting too crazy with these radical leftists or just these people who just plain out hate the Constitution, hate Trump. They think it's all his fault. Even though he's been in there for 4 years, they've been in there for freaking half your lifetime for the old folks. So it's just like, I think we as conservatives need to be a little bit more patient and have a little bit more patience with these people. Although our patience is running low. Mine is personally running low. I can't stand it anymore. When I see a CNN article, I get pissed. I was going to say something else, but I get mad. I get really angry when I see people sharing CNN as a mainstream source. Instead of laughing at it, I get angry now. It's like the only reason people like CNN, MSNBC, the truth being told, the only reason why leftists like it is because they bash on Trump. If they didn't bash on Trump, if they had fair news coverage like they claim to have, they wouldn't care. They wouldn't share anything by CNN or MSNBC or whatever. But they did. They do. So, yeah, our patience is running low. But we have to realize that there are people who are within the movement of Black Lives Matter who are genuine about protesting peacefully and genuine about respecting the Constitution. There are people like that who do think Black Lives Matter, but they're brainwashed by the mainstream media and the mainstream narrative of what it no longer is an ideology of Black Lives Matter. It's a cult. It's a brand. More than anything, it's a brand for the Democrats. They've taken the name. They've always had the name, but they've taken the name and they've made it a brand. I mean, look at it. It's a brand on all companies, Netflix, which we'll get into about their far radical left ideology, and so on and so forth. It's insane, folks. It really is, to think that
Grisham.
there we go. Sorry about that. To think that it's not like I lost my train of thought, but to think that it's not a brand, that's what I was going to say, would be ignorant. It's a brand at this. I mean, the mainstream media has picked it up and they've ran with it. They're like, and the Democrats too. They're like, Black Lives Matter is ours. We're claiming Black Lives Matter. This is our ideology. This is our way. And we're taking all the money that you donate to our website and giving it to our campaigns. People are sketched out by actblue.com. We've seen that. Today I just seen that. So there's no denying the fact that the Democrats, I mean, Soros, again, news article, Business Insider, I can cite it right now. Soros gave $200 million to Black Lives Matter this year. Yeah, that's right. George Soros gave $200 million. And then articles saying he tries to claim like that he's not trying to start authoritarianism or fight authoritarianism in countries. That's such bullshit. Excuse my language, but it is. He's not fighting authoritarianism. He is the authoritarian. And Soros is just a little drop of every other billionaire, financier, Rothschild, I'll say it, Zionist movement. Because I'm not afraid to say it. I'm not afraid to say that word. Because there is a movement within that sect. And you know what I'm talking about. The Mossad, so on and so forth movement, which I addressed Mossad on the Epstein thing because I do think that's important. But there's no denying that. But the fact that both sides do play a role, which I'm going to touch now because we talked about the radical left a little bit. We'll get a little bit more into them. But we're getting a little bit more deeper into this because I guess you could say we're going down the rabbit hole a little bit because now we're looking at both sides, controlled opposition, so on and so forth. And people who are Q believers, I say it at that so this video doesn't get taken down. They know that both sides are controlled. Conservatives, I love the conservative family, okay? I love them. They're great. They're great people. But there are issues that I have that I feel like in this episode that I need to address, especially with the Republicans, because I've addressed all my issues with the Democrats. You know damn well that they're just out of their minds right now. The Republicans have nothing to show for right now in the Senate. Seriously. What have they done to fight and combat the violence? They have done nothing. Have I seen a senator go and visit Milwaukee or not Milwaukee, Kenosha or Minneapolis or wherever else these erupt violence are happening? Have I seen them address that or go out there and say, hey, you know, we need to stop the violence, or hey, we might need to get the government involved somehow? No, they don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about any of that because they're cowards. Yes, the majority of the people on the Senate of the Republicans are cowards. Now, there's people who I respect. Jim Jordan is one of them. Rand Paul is another one of them. Ted Cruz is a little bit, he's kind of back and forth in my mind. Although I love Ted Cruz's policies, I respect Ted Cruz a lot. However, I'm seeing not enough effort made by him to do anything about this. He needs to say, hey, we're going to work on with the president and do so on and so forth. Obviously, he's a Texas senator. Obviously, Texas doesn't have as many problems as some of those Democratic-run states, so maybe that is why he's a little bit more quiet. But what have they really done this past year to really help the American people or kind of ease those feelings? Nothing. They have nothing to show for. Same with the Democrats. They're just as compliant as the Democrats are sometimes, really. And I see them two are the same. They're the same party basically. They're not true American patriotic conservatives like the president. But it's not about that anymore. It's not about identity politics. It's about the ideology of the American spirit, of the Constitution of America, of the Bill of Rights, the First, Second Amendment, Third Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, Sixth Amendment, Seventh Amendment, 10th Amendment, so on and so forth. It's about that and keeping that intact. So it's disappointing to see that and see the contradictions and see the way they choose certain countries' foreign policies over our own. We'll leave it at that. And I have seen that with the president. I'm not going to deny that. Where they choose certain countries, particularly we know the countries, over our own, to benefit them instead of benefiting us. And we're giving all this money to certain countries, particularly the two countries that come to mind. I will name them because I am not afraid to name them. Saudi Arabia and Israel. We give tons of money, tons of arms to them to fund their country. Meanwhile, we're struggling in national debt that has just gone up more and more. So yeah, I think it's ridiculous that even people on the right side are taking foreign policy and ruining it, and not necessarily having the best foreign policy that is America first or constitutionally sound. So there are contradictions within the Republican Party, and a lot of it is that Bushism, and I will use that term because it really is. It's a Bush-era Republican. Not saying Nixon was innocent either. Nixon-era Republicans are pretty dangerous themselves because of all the corruption that he committed. Now that's a debate amongst conservatives. But there's that too. And if Nixon was smart, he would have pulled out of the war sooner, which he refused to do. So yeah, there's a lot of Republicans who are not necessarily, we always have this ideology that Republicans are good guys just because we have conservative values and traditional values, which are opposed by the radical left. But they're not always true conservative values that the Republican rhinos have in mind. So, yeah, back to the radical left, who is just insane. Why anyone would support the Democratic Party is beyond me at this point. Why anybody would be defending Hillary Clinton is even worse. That is just to defend that woman. And I'm not going to be shy about this. Hillary is one of the worst Democrat politicians, most corrupt people in this entire nation. And this is not just an attack on Hillary. This is an attack on everybody associated with her. I mean, look at the problems that Anthony Weiner, I seen a comment today from my own family. I will not name names, but I saw a comment where they were like, well, Hillary's supposedly corrupt because she let 7 soldiers die in Benghazi. Like, seriously? You're freaking defending her ass because Trump apparently killed 200,000 people. It's ridiculous, folks. I mean, excuse me about that. The fact that they're defending her is just so, it's the brainwashed ideology by the mainstream media and the deep state. This is why I wanted to talk a little bit about it too, in a different episode, of course, is the deep state has indoctrinated people into believing that this mainstream media narrative, and not only was it Benghazi, it was the emails too. it was the years of corruption with the Clinton Foundation in Haiti and taking the money from Haiti and putting it in the foundation, putting it in their own pockets, having it as a tax write-off, so on and so forth, like Bill Gates does. It's that. It goes so much, and then it goes so much deeper into stuff that these little brained people, I will call them small-brained people, pea-brained people who can't think for themselves, can't even comprehend how deep it goes. And it goes deep, folks. It goes so deep. The deepest, darkest part of the ocean, like the deep web. Deeper than deep web. It goes beyond all that crap. And people don't understand that. It goes deeper beyond our minds that we can comprehend. And we go and we talk about the Matrix. And yeah, that goes in a little bit more conspiratorial, folks, but it's real. It's definitely real. And I'm not talking about simulation. I'm talking about living in this mindset that we've been lied to this whole time. Because we have. Growing up, we've been lied to. And now this generation, whether it be my generation, the generation before it, and the generation before that, whether it be old conservatives or young conservatives, so on and so forth, there's a philosophical thought, a thought that has been put into our minds to think outside the box, to finally wake up. This generation and the generations before it have been waking up these past 8 years, I would say. They've been waking up. There is a great awakening of some sort that is happening. There is no doubt about that. And now we're seeing the dividing line. We're seeing who is going to be with them and who is going to be against them. And this fantasy I've always thought about is like, I wonder what's going to happen. Like, I wonder if these so-called conspiracy theories of civil war or the globalists, new world order, communists, whatever you want to call them, versus us, we the people, the constitutionalists, people who believe in this country and the Bill of Rights. I wonder if it'll ever happen. And I would have never imagined that, from 2014 when I started leaning a little bit more conservatively. I didn't necessarily call myself a Republican or African or, conservative, but I knew I was always kind of that way since I was young. I was like always more moderate about stuff, when it came to drugs and all that bull crap and, just stuff like that, the cultural stuff. I was culturally a lot more conservative than most kids who were 18, 16, whatever, 15, 16 even. So yeah, I always had that mindset, but I never knew what it was until about 2015, 2016. But yeah, I was leaning more that way when I was younger. And then it wasn't until 2014 that I really had that epiphany of, hey, things aren't as they seem. Or, finally questioning, when you get raised in a Democratic household, and like I said, my family on certain sides of the family and other sides of the family as well, lean more left wing, and they're a little bit more liberal, a little bit more open. So yeah, when you're raised like that, you kind of don't get raised necessarily to question. As I always say, I always go back to, they pick who is your hero and they pick who is your villain. Obama good guy, Trump bad guy, LeBron James hero, and Dennis Rodman a villain or whatever, so on and so forth. Mike Tyson a villain, and Muhammad Ali a hero, whatever it is, whatever situation it is, they paint that for you. And you're taught that from an age, especially when you're a Democrat. You're taught, okay, Hillary good, any Republican is bad, okay? Basically, any Republican wants you to be, they want to take all your money and blah, blah, blah. And more government is better because we can actually help you and socialize things, so on and so forth, with economics. And questioning mainstream media is bad, so on and so forth. When you're raised like that, you're not taught to think out of the box until someone sparks it in your mind and says, hey, never thought of it that way. That's why it's good to have an open mind. And I myself am not always the best with that. I'm probably one of the worst people, especially now that I'm so caught up in all this political shit, you know. And I'll cuss, whatever. But especially now that I'm caught up in all this and doing the show, so on and so forth, it's hard to be open-minded to leftist ideologies. And there are things that I am a little bit more socially liberal, but not necessarily socially liberal personally, but I think that society has, you know, they've gone so far left, it's kind of hard to say, all right, we're going to pull it back right now. You know what I mean? Like with gay marriage, that's a radical left ideology. That was the introduction to everything. We're talking about the radical left still, folks. But yeah, that was kind of the start. That was kind of like, we're going to push you more in this way. The LGBT community just went wild. They went all the way. Just like, and now it's like they radicalized them too. After that, they just became radicalized and selfish about everything. About like, well, I'm this way, so screw you, and blah, blah, blah. This is my way, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? So they radicalized them. They really did. I think the LGBT community wasn't as radicalized. I mean, maybe they were. I can't really recall that much. I don't really know much prior to now, what I've seen now, when the Obama administration was in charge and during the Bush era. But yeah, they radicalized them, and they continue to radicalize them. They continue to say, hey, you need to think this way. Again, it goes back to that ideology. This is your hero. This is your villain. We teach you the way to think, and anything questioning that is not right. So if you're a gay fellow and you're like, well, I have to follow LGBT or blah, 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 so on and so forth, and be dedicated to that, like it's your damn religion because the Democrats told you. You never think of, hey, maybe I can be anti-LGBT and, well, yeah, anti and not necessarily support them, but still be gay and support my right to be gay, whatever, so on and so forth. But I don't have to be associated. It's like with the Black Lives Matter thing. I don't have to be associated with this organization, but I can still respect the ideology and still practice the ideology. I don't think there's enough of that within the leftist communities, such as BLM and LGBT, questioning them. So I don't want to toe the line where this gets copyrighted for hate speech. But sure, you know, gay marriage is one thing that we cannot change at this point. And it's not like all these conservatives and all these a lot of people who are Christian are saying, well, let's cancel gay marriage. Let's stop. Let's reverse it. It's too late for that, folks. That's already passed. And the eruption that would cause would be insane. Way more than the abortion thing. So I think it's too late for that. There's a lot of people in the conservative movement who are gay, who would probably be upset about that. Now, that's more of a libertarian ideology, which I identify with. If you want to go do drugs and mess up your life, you have that right to. I am totally for the decriminalization of drugs. I think it's stupid that we have basically villainized stuff like marijuana and so on and so forth, and what do they call it? Psychedelic drugs, so on and so forth. I'm not really a user of hardcore drugs or anything like that. I don't know if that's considered hardcore drugs. That's ridiculous. But I do believe that there are benefits to medical marijuana and marijuana in general. I think people need to realize that, you know, they need to realize, hey, you know, there's benefits to this. If I'm feeling stressed, smoke some CBD. It's good for your anxiety. It's good for my anxiety. I know CBD is a great thing. And some people want the THC. That's me. I don't I don't really care for the THC stuff. But if that's your thing, you should be able to practice that. You shouldn't have to be restrained to what the government can tell you to do, what you want to do. You should be able to do that. And for the people who are hardcore drug users, a lot of the violence on the street is because drugs are not legalized. If we legalize them, we might see a decrease in violence. But not only that, but that goes on with the Iran-Contra, with the CIA drug trafficking too. We know about that. Mena, Arkansas, some Bill Clinton, who was the governor at the time, who was allowing some of the drugs to come from the Contra into Mena, Arkansas. Kind of weird, huh? And that was during the Bush or I believe it was the Bush administration. It might have been during Reagan. But Bush was the CIA director prior to that. So, yeah, we have to think about that. And we have to think about Reagan's association with Bush. Reagan, a great president. True American patriot, in my opinion. But still, again, it goes back to that, it's kind of weird that he was associated with Bush. But it's insane, folks, that we are living in the times we are living. Looks like we have got some footage from some of the protests today. There's a counter protest apparently that's saying Blue Lives Matter. I'll play you some audio clips right here. So we're seeing a big uprising of counter protesting sweeping the country as well. Not just the Black Lives Matter protest. And it seems pretty peaceful right now. It seems like a lot of people aren't wearing masks. Obviously. They're interviewing a lot of people out there. I was just looking at some footage here myself. Chanting Blue Lives Matter. It seems pretty peaceful to me as of right now. We'll have to see what it looks like in a couple hours. If I need to do a emergency broadcast, I will. Hopefully I won't. But right now it looks pretty peaceful, which is nice. There might be a little bit of confrontation, but hopefully it won't be too much that it erupts in destruction, chaos, and violence. But back to what I was saying. I mean, it really is a epiphany that you have when you wake up to what is going on in the world and the radical left and so on and so forth with the Bushes and the Iran-Contra. I was talking about that. Things do make you question because Reagan was kind of associated with the Bushes and so on and so forth, Bohemian Grove, which there's an excellent book out. If you're interested in Bohemian Grove and everything that went down with that, we're talking more conspiratorial, but it's not conspiracy anymore because it's all out in the open. There is a book by Mark Dice that he did years ago. I believe it was like 2015, and it's called Bohemian Grove. Talks a lot about stuff that I didn't know about the Grove, such as the prostitution, the male prostitution, underage people going there. Crazy, far out stuff that has been noted, and the people who have leaked the stuff prior to AJ doing the infiltration. People also infiltrated it prior to him doing that, and then also after that there was a few other people who leaked some of the video of inside the Grove. Very interesting stuff. I highly encourage people to go check that book out. But back to what I was saying, the radical left, finishing this whole thing off, the radical left has been crazy, folks. And it's sad because I want to help these people, I don't want them to think exactly the way I do. Because that would be asking a little bit, not only a little bit too much, but that would be asking them not to be themselves. And that would go against, that would make me look like a hypocrite because it's like me saying that they're telling me how to be, and I don't want to do that. But the truth of the matter is that there has to be some kind of balance where there. I think the problem is socialistic communism. I really think that communism is at the core of our problems, especially with the radical left. I think they've gone so far left that it's hard for them to comprehend being a moderate Democrat. There's no moderate Democrats really left anymore. Joe Biden was the last one I can think of, and he sold out, obviously, to the radical left. So it's hard to see the moderation within the movement of the Democratic Party because they've become so far radical left. It's hard for them to kind of go back now. But I think it's important to remember that people have different opinions, even if they're not of our own. And we can't sound like hypocrites saying, well, you need to think like this or you need to support the president. If you have a problem with the president, that's fine. That's up to you. But don't come after me saying you're an idiot for supporting him or you're a racist or whatever, so on and so forth. Don't say that. That is a destructive behavior, and that is not what the Constitution has instilled within us and within our country. We have the right to have a different opinion, and the Democrats have the right to have their opinion. But what we're seeing radicalization of the party. We are not seeing a moderation or moderate points of the party anymore. And it's sad to see. It's really sad to see. And I don't know what the solution to that problem is. I think it's getting rid of socialism and communism and knowing that they don't work. Educating people, that's what the left always says. We need to educate them. It's like, you're going to have us in re-education camps like they said. See, that's another radicalized idea that Project Veritas had uncovered. Let me see if I can play a little bit of audio if they have it. Talking about the re-education camps for conservatives. This is what Bernie's campaign said. And it came out in a Project Veritas report. So if you're just joining us, I am Daniel Chico, your host. On this evening, Saturday evening, I don't see it here. I'm not seeing it. I know it's here. Project Veritas, Bernie supporter, re-education. That's what I'm looking for. And of course, they've removed the radical left, have become so radical. They have removed. All right, let's see what we can get right here. I just saw something. Now it's gone. Okay, let me play some audio for you guys real quick. I'll play about 3 minutes of audio and then I'll come right back. I'm not sure if you can hear it.
It'll start in Milwaukee, and then when the police push back on that, and other cities will
start from the beginning.
Bernie doesn't get the nomination. It goes to the second round at the DNC convention. Milwaukee will burn. It'll start in Milwaukee, and then when the police push back on that, and other cities will.
So if Trump gets reelected, what?
Cities burn.
Do you even think that some of these, like, MAGA people could even be re-educated?
I mean, we gotta try. I mean, in Nazi Germany, after the fall of the Nazi Party, there was a shit ton of the populace that was f***ing Nazified. And, Germany had to spend billions of dollars re-educating fucking people to not be Nazis.
Yeah.
probably going to have to do the same thing here. And that's kind of what Bernie's like, like, hey, free education for everybody, because we're going to have to teach you not to be a Nazi. There's a reason Joseph Stalin had gulags, right? And actually, gulags were a lot better than like what like the CIA has told us.
So I'm not sure how clear that audio was, but they're basically talking about. Let me see.
Naked people could even
Basically talking about beaten if Bernie loses. And it's kind of weird that this was 7 months ago in January 14th, prior to the riots, and they were saying that police officers will be beaten if Bernie loses. And gulags weren't that bad, and we need to re-educate the conservatives, basically, is what they said. And these are Bernie Sanders campaign staffers, folks, saying this crap. Radicalized. They are radicalized. There's no denying that at this point in time in this history of the Democratic Party. It's pretty sad that we are seeing that, and I never thought we would see that with the party that claimed that they have a bunch of moderates. I don't believe they have moderates. And it's time that we talk to the radical left and tell them that socialism is wrong, that socialism isn't the answer, that communism isn't the answer. And the answer is the Constitution and Bill of Rights. All of us have an opinion. All of us being able to express our concerns and being able to support whoever we want, whether it be a left candidate or a right candidate, and accepting those results of the election. It's time that the radical left realize how radical they really are. It's time that we as conservatives remind people how radicalized they are. It's time that we expose this agenda that is happening in the Democratic Party, which is initially an agenda to take down the rest of us. I'm Daniel Chico, your host of the Fight for Liberty. This has been the Fight for Liberty podcast, and it has been an honor. I will tell you that. This is a great podcast. I love our new setup, so on and so forth. We're going to be doing a hell of a lot more in the future. So if you want to, please like, rate, subscribe, comment. This will be posted later on Spotify, so on and so forth. It's on our site, thefightforliberty.com. Again, this is the Fight for Liberty. We are constitutionalists. We believe in the American dream, the American right to prosper, and we believe in God-given rights of difference of opinion, unlike the radical left. I'm Daniel Chico, your host. Thank you for joining me on this hour. Hopefully we'll be back sometime next week. Might do a little Q&A again on Facebook sometime in the coming week. Maybe even tomorrow. We will see. I'm Daniel Chico, and this has been the fightforliberty.com. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
Thank you.